Hello everybody and welcome to another Doctor Who review. This time I'm doing a Big Finish main range audio drama starring Peter Davison as the 5th Doctor and Mark Strickson as Turlough. Loups-Garoux. Okay, so we have a plot line that goes a little bit like this. Germany, 1589. Peter Stuber is being executed as a mass murderer in Cologne, Germany, and he has taken on the guise of a ferocious wolf. He survives his execution and prowls the world. 1812, Ileana de Santos, a merchant's daughter, is saved by a handsome partisan who turns out to be Stuber. Brazil, 2080, the Amazon forest is now a desert, and the Doctor and Turlough arrive for the real carnival. They quickly then get into the machinations of werewolves, Ileana and her tribe. Her son Victor is very ill, and Dr. Hayashi has been charged in making him better. Hayashi is working for Stuber, and Stuber has been hunting Ileana ever since she left him. Being fully aware that Stuber is near, Ileana decides to leave Rio to a rendezvous point on a monorail train, and the chase begins. Turlough almost turns into a werewolf at one point by some of Ileana's lackeys, who are jealous that the Doctor has come to help. Turlough then gets thrown off a train and ends up meeting up with Rosa, an old tribe member of a tribe from the Amazon jungle. The last of her tribe in the wild, she is on an initiation journey to become the great wise leader of her tribe. She holds with her a silver knife, and with that, she wants to kill the great wolf, Stuber. Rosa ends up saving Turlough, and is then picked up by the wolves, along with Turlough, and given back to Ileana. The Doctor challenges Stuber to protect Ileana, and Stuber doesn't really get him. The Doctor then uses K9's whistle to get the wolves to come nearby, and actually prove themselves to be not under the influence of Stuber. The confrontation finishes with Stuber falling into the TARDIS, and the Doctor rising high above the Earth. Werewolves are tied to the Earth, they cannot fly, and Stuber ends up starting to die. Rosa is there and takes him into her mind, back to the forest where he began. That's your basic plot for this. It's an interesting story overall to listen to, quite fun to get into, and there's a lot of wordplay and descriptions about old tales and old trips, and it's really an intriguing listen. It's not a bad story, it goes along quite a good lick. It doesn't seem to have too much of an issue when it comes to giving a good pace. I think the guest cast is very, very good to have in this. I'll go through the guest cast, and I think the guest cast works well here and helps build a relationship between the Doctor and Turlough as well, which I'll get to later on with some of the bits of it. Let's go through the cast. Let's have a look at each of the main cast and have a discussion about what the characters like and what they like and what I don't like about them and all the usual stuff for a review, especially for Big Finish. We have the Doctor, played by Peter Davison. Davison doesn't seem to be reading off the script anymore. He definitely seems to have found himself. He's more comfortable. The character is more like the 5th Doctor. Again, this is the Doctor and Turlough near the end of the 5th Doctor's life, so there's a more confident Doctor. It's not as uncertain or as uneasy as you get with the adventures he's had with Nyssa more recently. This is the second story I've seen with Turlough and the Doctor. The relationship between Turlough and the 5th Doctor is built upon phantasmagoria. It's obviously they've been travelling for a while, it's obviously they kind of trust each other. And the fact they're both aliens, I mean, Turlough is Tryon, and he's the last alien companion that the Doctor's had till the present day, which is really interesting. But I love the relationship between the two of them. Peter Davison seems to be very comfortable with the role now. It's very much the Doctor that we know from the television series. It's a later, more confident Doctor. It's not the one we see in most of the TV series. It definitely is a kind of between Resurrection, the Daleks, and Planet of Fire Doctor that we see here. I like the fact the 5th Doctor, he's trying to be braver than he actually seems to become across. When he challenges Stuber in the last episode, I think that's quite well played by Peter Davison and obviously well written by Mark Platt here for the story. I think it's really quite a nice little turn that's done here. There's a nice little piece between him and Turlough as well, where he starting to maybe he has feelings for Ileana, and that's why he's doing this. And he tries to do it, question Turlough in such a way to get advice, but does it by trying to see if Turlough has something for Rosa. I thought it was a nice little set piece they had there in the TARDIS. She was quite nice to see, a nice character development, really. We then have Turlough, played by Mark Strickson. The thing with Turlough at this stage is with the character we've got here, he's obviously an outsider, which is fine, and they play it on the fact that he's an outsider, but this is somebody who's become more confident and happy in himself, and there is elements of doubt here when he's been manipulated by the wolves to show his dark shadow, as they call it. But the way Strickson plays it is, you do believe him. You do believe that Turlough is this unsure person, I think is probably the better way of putting it, that he comes across with. And I think the scenes between him and Rosa are very, very strong. They show a different side to Turlough, because love and platonic relationships is not something they really did in Doctor Who at that point. It was kind of like, oh, they're friends, but there's no sort of love between them in that respect. And Mark Strickson plays it very well. We then have Ileana de Santos, played by Eleanor Bron. Eleanor Bron gives a gravitas to any role she plays. She is so deliberate in the way she says stuff and pronounces stuff. You believe the aristocratic character that she's playing here of de Santos, and also the yearning for her child as well, the kind of mother who's want to be protecting of their cub. I thought that was really well played and really well done, and really well performed by Eleanor Bron, and the writing reflects that as well. I think it's really, really well put together. The one bit I didn't think quite worked is when she started turning into a werewolf self. I don't know if it's just the way it's been acted or where the effects are, but it breaks your disbelief a little bit, the way it's portrayed, and it doesn't come across as strong, I think is probably the best way to describe it when it comes to that part of the character. Overall, though, I think Ileana's a very interesting character. She's obviously very enamoured and with the Doctor, and the Doctor's starting to have feelings for her, whether that's through her influence or whether it's something else, I don't know. But it's well played by Eleanor Bron, and definitely a character to get your teeth into. I suppose you could use that lupine expression under the circumstances. We then have Dr. Hayashi, played by Burt Kuok. I don't know what it is. I think it's just the way he speaks. It's like he sounds rather one-sided at times. The way the character's been portrayed here with Dr. Hayashi. I mean, there's obviously no ulterior motive there with Hayashi. And Hayashi's an interesting scientist who seems to be quite easy to bribe, because both Stuber and de Santos are dangling money at him, and he's quite easy to turn on either of them according to what the situation is. He's suspicious of the Doctor, because the Doctor seems to find him out rather quickly about what he's doing. But overall, it's an interesting contrast of a character there, and I quite liked it. We've then got Peter Stuber as himself. Nicky Henson plays that role. Do you know what? He plays the character with the gravitas and the evilness you need and the manipulation you need for a big bad wolf. Literally, he's the big bad wolf. He's the grey wolf. He's the leader. He's the firstborn of the werewolves. And it's interesting how he sneaks in the shadows for the first part of it and then tries to project his power on everybody on the second part. And the way that's written, the way that's put across, you can tell that he's maybe not having the great luck. I think, the Doctor plays on the fact that he may be older and he's losing his touch a little bit. But his manipulation skills are still very strong compared to the rest of the wolves. But it's down to a battle of wills in the end, and Stuber just doesn't seem to be strong enough. I think he plays on his strength, and he's outwitted by the Doctor, basically. And it's an interesting contrast and development in the story. We then have David Hankinson playing Anton Lichtfuss. Anton is obviously wants to get with Ileana, is very jealous of the Doctor getting into Ileana's affections, and it's a nice little turn done by David Hankinson. Rosa Kamen, played by Sarah Gale, is an interesting character. Most of her thoughts are done through a kind of audio diary, a journal that she's recording. She's writing to her grandfather, because her grandfather was a great wise man who had spirits in her. She's kind of got that kind of a South American, Native American feeling to her, and the way her outlook is on life. I think it's a lovely way it's played by Sarah Gale. I think the writing works quite well, and the fact she seems to have a slight affection for Turlough and he for her is a nice little twist to the story, and makes it work for me. The only other one I'm really going to go with here is Victor, played by Barnaby Edwards. Now, obviously Victor doesn't really come into his own until later on, but it's interesting having this character Victor who's half human and has got his wolf side, and it's quite interesting how it's actually the medication of Hayashi that's keeping him on this wolf side. It's not actually doing the opposite. I thought that was quite intriguing. It's a nice way of manipulating Ileana, I suppose, so Struba can come back into her affections, because she's left him, obviously. It's not really revealed why, but she's obviously left him and he's feeling a bit jaded and hurt about it, which is, I suppose, understandable if you really fall in love with something, or someone rather. Victor is kind of like the key driving force for all of Ileana's decisions. That's kind of motherly love, and the way the characters put across later, the fact that he's still loyal, he really is loyal to his mother, and kind of has a respect for the Order a little bit. It's an interesting way of putting it across. In regards to the story itself, it's obviously based on werewolves, all the history about it, lycanthropy, the fact of the full moon, and the fact that you've got the humans have turned half werewolf, and this whole idea of having the dark side coming out through a mirror trick, and the whole mythology works quite well for this. You've got this kind of monster of fantasy that is being played for in a kind of, it's not true sci-fi, but it's got a kind of fantasy element to it. When Doctor Who does really well, and this is a good example of that. I think it's a nicely written story. Mark Platt does seem to do darker stories, and this is no exception. This does have a dark tone to it. It's nice to have that writing. I think it works quite well as a story overall, and I really do think it's a fun story. You can tell the direction's fairly tight, though. Nicholas Pedd's done a good job of making it tight with the characters, because they seem to leap off the page, and that's probably down to the writing, but it's also probably down to the direction as well. I don't think there's really much wrong with the way it's directed and put through it. It's very well paced. It doesn't get boring at any point, and I love the fact they're utilising some of the audio restrictions to give better thoughts and feelings to people. Rose has a lot of asides in her diary, but some of the others have asides as well. But it's nice to have that little piece with the Doctor and Turlough talking about relationships and love and respect for each other and things like that in Turlough's room near the end, when the Doctor's contemplating the next steps with Ileana and defeating Struba. I thought it was really interesting, that kind of opportunity for the characters to breathe, and there's a couple of interesting elements like that in this story which really do endear it to me. That being said, it's not a 5 TARDIS out of 5, it's not a 4.5, it's definitely better than 3. I'm going to go with 4 TARDISes out of 5. Okay, let's see how this story stacks up with the rest of the Big Finish audios I've reviewed so far. Loups-Garoux sits in with 3 other stories that have 4.5 TARDISes out of 5. They are The Genocide Machine, The Spectre of Lanyon Moor, and The Stones of Venice. At the bottom are still 2 stories, The Land of the Dead and Winter for the Adept, with 3 TARDISes out of 5. And at the top is The Apocalypse Element, with 4.5 TARDISes out of 5. That's it for this Big Finish Doctor Who review. Tell me what you think about Loups-Garoux. Leave a comment down below. Do you like it? Leave a comment down below. Do you not like it? Leave a comment down below. If you like this video, please like it and share it with the hashtag teamstructor. Hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell so you know when a new video comes out if you like the channel as a whole. And please remember, general rule, new video every Sunday at 4 PM GMT. I'm back next Sunday with my Doctor Who review of Under the Lake Before the Flood. Hopefully you can join me for that. Until next time, guys, thanks so much for watching and listening, of course. And you know what? I'll see you later.